My name is Matt Tanner. At 8 years old, I rolled pretzels for my dad's pretzel stores. Fast forward to today, I do multi-unit franchise deals and help entrepreneurs build their businesses. This is Franchisees United. What's going on, guys? Matt Tanner here with the Franchisees United podcast. Today, I have the pleasure of welcoming on Ian Gordon with Northwestern Mutual. Ian, how you doing, brother?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So Ian we've actually done a podcast before, right? What's it been?
I think it's been a couple months, 2 or 3 months.
Couple months now, your office in Boca. So we had a really good episode with that.
It was awesome.
So I think today what I want to gear this more towards is, obviously we've done a podcast a lot about your firm and what you do, and I want to talk a little bit about that as well. Yeah. But as you know, our audience is franchisees and more importantly, business owners. So I want to kind of talk a little bit about what they should be doing from a risk mitigation standpoint, as well as diversification, all that stuff.
For sure.
But more importantly, let's kind of dive into a little bit about you. Tell people who don't know who you are, how you got started and what you're doing with Northwestern Mutual and what you do kind of day to day.
So again, it's Ian Gordon, and I was born in Pittsburgh, PA. I moved to South Florida really just to chase fishing. That's my hobby in my life, my dream. And I realized that I had to get a real job. Fell into finance just on the whim. And I love it. I absolutely love it. So my job day to day is to recruit and develop a team at this point now. But I also do maintain clientele that I've met over time, as well as seek individual clients who are referrals. But really the job is to diversify business owners, diversify individuals. My target market specifically is business owners, just because there's so many different avenues and so many ways I can help them. Mm-hmm. I'll give you an example. If you have somebody who's worked for Coca-Cola, for instance, their entire life, and they're offered a 401k, they're offered health insurance, they're offered disability insurance, all these different benefits, we don't have the same benefits as somebody who's a business owner, right? They're 1099, and there's a lot of luxuries with being a business owner. But the negative thing is that nobody's matching them in a 401k, nobody's setting them up.
Right.
So if you take a business owner that makes $200,000 or pays himself $200,000 from their business, and then you take somebody who's made $100,000 at Coca-Cola, if we look at retirement, by the time we're there, the person at Coca-Cola is already set up for retirement a lot better than the individual who paid themselves more income as a business owner. So what we do is we structure the business so they can set up sides or a portion of their income from the business to be able to fund and diversify for a retirement plan.
Gotcha. So, one thing, obviously my background is in the franchise industry. I grew up in it. And what I've seen a lot of over the years is franchisees that'll get so caught up in how successful and how well they're doing within individual brands. So someone that was actually very close to me, his entire life built a portfolio within the same brand. Yeah. And then, obviously we're at a different day and age now, whether it's technology or, the distribution and just how the day and age that we're in now is just so much different than 10, 20 years ago. And as technology grows and different things happen, anything can happen to your business, especially if you're not diversified and you're only focused on one franchise brand. So like I said, someone I've known very closely, he lost everything just because he was only in one brand. Yeah. And he was very successful for the last 2 decades. Yep. But now is at the point where it didn't work out with that brand. And the last 10, 20 years, he wasn't making the proper investments.
Correct.
Outside of that one eggs nest. So I guess talk to me a little bit about that. Like, what do you do for your clients and what do you think he should have done throughout those 10 or 20 years?
So again, it's a perfect example. With business owners, they're reinvesting. They take good income from the business, but they're always reinvesting those extra dollars back into that single business. Mm-hmm. In this case, like with your example, it can be really, really dangerous because now we're tying all of our eggs up in one basket.
Right.
So that proves the point exactly that the most important piece to this is to be diversified. You want to have your money all over the place.
Of course.
Now, your business is going to give you the greatest rate of return, no ifs, ands, or buts. And a successful business.
Right.
But, again, stressing the importance of being diversified. You should have your money in real estate. You should have your money in the market. You should have your money in some safer areas like insurance. You should have your money all over the place. Mm-hmm. That way, if something's not working or something falls off the map, we've got the other ones that are there to back you up and protect you.
For sure.
So really, really, really important to diversify. And not only that, it gives you leverage in the future. So even if our business continues to be successful and it continues to climb, imagine just from a tax efficiency piece, being able to pull from different areas at different times that are most opportune. So diversification, again, I can't stress it enough. But in that given position or in that given circumstance, those individuals or those business owners being able to set themselves up from a diversification platform, they'd probably be a lot better off today. In fact, I know they would.
For sure. In the franchise space, it's crazy because it's very predictable cash flow outside of something drastic happen to your business.
Absolutely.
So, you maybe have a 2%, 3%, 4% annual increase
Absolutely.
of sales. And if you're running your controllables properly and maximizing profitability, you can truly predict what you're going to make, what your revenues are going to be versus your EBITDA at the end of the year. So I guess my question is, if the franchise owner knows if they understand how much money they're going to make or cash flow out of each business, what should they be doing specific investments and something they could do with you, for example?
Absolutely. So, rule of thumb would be, especially for a business like that, would be to try to get as close to 10% of revenue placed into different areas in diversification. If it's a single individual, we're not even talking about there's an asset in the business, they really should be putting 20% of their income. But because we're in a given situation where somebody has the asset of the business, that's already an investment in itself. So 10% would be sufficient.
So if they make $100,000 a year in net income out of their businesses, you would recommend they would put 10%, so 10,000 of that aside.
Yeah. I would say at least 10,000.
So 10 to 20,000, you're saying.
Yeah. And some avenues that I would say that would be important is obviously to have some tax efficiency in some type of IRA.
Mm-hmm.
The only negative downside to an IRA is you can't touch that money until 59 and a half.
Right.
Although we need to have money in the future anyways, it also puts us in a position where a lot of them give us a dollar for dollar tax deduction.
Mm-hmm.
People are so bad at saving here in the United States that the government actually incentivizes us to put money away by giving those type of deductions, or else they're going to be on the hook to be able to help people with Medicaid and Medicare and all these different avenues where they're going to end up fund anyways.
Right.
So the first avenue would be making sure that we're not overpaying in taxes and making sure that instead of paying the IRS, we're paying ourselves for the future. The second avenue would be more on the liquidity side, would be splitting those extra dollars into permanent life insurance, and in addition to that, using a brokerage account. So we'll start with the permanent insurance. That would be the safe piece to the portfolio. Cash value that we're accumulating that doesn't have market risk, but it's liquid. We can touch it anytime we need to. And if there's a down market, now we've got access to cash that we can pull from and buy into real estate in the market in opportune times.
Right.
I also like brokerage account because it gives you that market exposure just like a 401k or an IRA would, but it doesn't tie you up till 59 and a half. So imagine having unlimited access, being able to touch this money before 59 and a half without any penalties.
Right.
But still gives you the ability to earn those type of rate of returns to 10 to 15% long term. And follow the S&P trends. So I do like the idea of literally, having the money all over the place, including in addition to that, real estate.
Okay, so how do franchisees even get started? It's obviously overwhelming for them because they're running all these, if they're a multi-unit owner or even if they're an individual operator, what would you recommend? I know you said start with 10%, start small. But what would be the first thing you would recommend them to do?
The first thing I recommend is one, to find somebody like myself who's an advisor who knows what they're doing.
Okay.
People think, and there's a common misconception that you need to have millions and millions of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's just absolutely not correct.
Right.
So, I work with people that put $20 a month away. I work with people that put $1 million a month away. It doesn't make a difference. The idea is to get comfortable with a budget, whether that's what the business can afford to put away or an individual, what they can personally afford to put away.
Mm-hmm.
And we build a foundation with the budget that they're currently comfortable with, diversify them, and now we've got all these different accounts already open for them. And as their budget increases over time, maybe it's a small amount of dollars to them today, but we put a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more each time we review, and before they know it, they're putting a lot of money away for retirement and hitting their goals. Right. So even if it's below the 10%, any step in the right direction is huge. And I do see a new movement with the next generation that's seen their parents make a lot of mistakes. So these younger individuals who are open to start to save, they just don't know where to start.
Right.
Call an advisor. A lot of them are free to work with.
Yeah.
And people just don't realize that it's not expensive to work with an advisor and you don't have to have a ton of money.
Right.
I definitely have seen a change in this generation, the new generation, because they've learned from their parents' mistakes. Their parents didn't save properly. They didn't do all the things that are necessary to put money away. And the parents are smart enough to tell their kid, don't do the mistake. Learn from my mistakes, put money away, and do it properly.
For sure. So, I know you mentioned, people that have seen their parents go through that, and now they're in a position where they've learned.
Yeah.
I guess I want to kind of touch on the different types of business and franchise owners as far, from an age demographic. So
Absolutely.
like what somebody might do if they're a 25-year-old franchisee versus and single versus a 60-year-old franchisee with dozens of locations and a family to think about.
Yeah.
So what would you recommend the 25-year-old should do different than the 60-year-old?
There really is not too much different in terms of the different vehicles that are available. It really is that simple. I mean, there's not that many places to put your money.
Mm-hmm.
But as different stages in life, there's different approaches that we take towards financial planning. For instance, if you are somebody who's in the later years of your life in terms of retirement or getting close to retirement, we have to work with what we got, and then we have to figure out the most advantageous way to distribute it. And for more examples would be that, okay, so how much tax advantage money do we have? How much money do we have to pay taxes on? And where are we pulling from different times? For somebody who's young, I mean, it's very, very simple to do the planning. It's what is affordable to you today. Let's build off of that, get comfortable with that budget, and increase it over time. So, some of the areas that would include on both demographics or both age groups would be life insurance. Make sure we start with protection and make sure, at an early age especially, to lock in at a young age when they're healthy. Mm-hmm. If it's still possible or still putting them in a position at their age in the future when they're older, to apply for life insurance so they can get accepted because of their health. It is going to be more expensive, but sometimes it's still advantageous to move forward with a plan. But being young and taking advantage of your youth and your health is key when it comes to the insurance side of the planning. The investments is, sooner you do it, the better. In fact, if you just play with a compounding calculator or play with an interest calculator, it'll show you improve, at a young age. If you start to save $100 now, if you're 25 years old, in the future, you could have over $1 million, by the time you're 65.
But nobody wants to get rich slowly.
No. Well, that's the truth. That's the truth. But doing that in addition to the other things that can get you rich quicker, puts you in a position where your plan is foolproof. No if ands or buts, you'll be a millionaire, and you put yourself on the path to be able to get it done.
For sure. So like the younger franchisee, say he's 25, 30 years old roughly, and he's got one location, maybe two. Yeah. I know you mentioned locking in that age with life insurance.
Absolutely.
Would you recommend he would just do the term or the whole policy?
It could be a mixture of both. It depends on the budget. If the budget allows us to do permanent insurance and you're starting to build an asset right away, awesome. Let's do it. Mm-hmm. If your budget doesn't necessarily allow you to do that, even locking in a term insurance policy, even though we haven't got to the point where we're saving or accumulating, we've locked in your health and we've locked in your youth. That's the most important piece when you're doing life insurance planning. Is we know we may not need a death benefit today, but we're going to need it anyways in the future. As our business starts to build, as we acquire more positive debt, as we build a family, we need to have it. We might as well pay the least amount that we possibly can for it. And then eventually, as our budget increases, we can turn that term insurance into a building asset with permanent life insurance.
So it's simply just to lock the age in, essentially?
Absolutely. Health is actually the most important piece. I can't tell you how many times I see and people just in their mindset think that nothing's going to change with their health. Right. It's actually a statistic, which is a pretty wild statistic. There's less than a 4% chance somebody's actually going to die in the next 20 years, okay, if they're accepted by an insurance company. Right. But from a disability perspective or a health change perspective, there's actually a 28% chance that somebody in the next 20 years is going to have some type of health change or disability. Yeah. So prepping for that and locking yourself in when you know you're healthy is the most opportune time to do it.
For sure. And is that just for like any type of injury, or is that
it could be an injury that actually takes away from your income, right? And that's a whole different subject in terms of insurance. That would be a disability insurance policy. I can't stress that enough. I mean, it's literally insuring your income, and your income is the biggest asset that you have. When I ask people, what's your biggest asset? They tell me their 401k, their home, their real estate, their business. Well, no, it's not. It's really that. None of this would be there without them. Right. So we need to make sure that we insure properly the most, advantageous piece to their portfolio, and that's them. So, people insure their phones, they insure their cars, they insure their TVs, right? But we're in a position where we need to insure the biggest asset that they have, and that's them. Right. So disability insurance is key when it comes into play with that. Anything that could be limiting to them to do the duties of their job puts them in a position where, the insurance company now would be on the hook to pay them tax-free income all the way to age 70.
Oh, wow, to 70.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I guess what I'm hearing here is for the younger franchisee that's had a little success early on, the two important things is to lock in the age with the life insurance, and then you said lock in health. Yeah. That's both with with the life insurance? Or
absolutely.
Okay.
Health, that's for life insurance and that's
but what about the disability? Both. So you can lock in disability insurance the same way that you can.
The younger you do it, more advantageous in terms of cost. And obviously, there's no other healthier time than right now.
And then as long as they're keeping up with their insurance premiums, you never lose that age on either of them.
Absolutely. So God forbid something happened to them in the future, right? From a health perspective, they can never take away that premier health rating. Okay. Your age is always going to be locked in within your plan.
And the disability insurance, it's not like, is it like life insurance where there's term and whole, or that's just a term?
There's many, many different facets to disability, and you can customize those plans in different dimensions. The way that I always like to do it is a 90-day elimination period, and what that means is it would kick in after 90 days of a disability.
Okay.
And the reason why I do 90 days is a little less expensive than doing, a 30-day elimination period, because typically the clients that we're working with, or somebody that owns a business in specifics, has enough to be able to, or saved, or can find or pull together some monies that they became disabled within a 90-day period. Right. Where it really, really becomes detrimental is when we have 90 days or more where somebody can't work or can't continue to have income come in. That's really where I've seen it be devastating. So we usually want to insure from 90 days on all the way to age 70. So there's not necessarily any term component to it. It would just stop paying to an individual once they turn 70 years old.
Okay.
And it's typically about 60% of your income. So for instance, if somebody makes $100,000, they go down and they can't perform any of the duties of their specific own occupation. Right. I pay them $60,000 tax-free all the way to age 70.
That was actually my next question. Yeah. So say they make $100,000 a year and then they have the disability insurance, and then something happens. Yep. And then they can't work anymore. They can't run their business. Is it just 60% of that $100K till 70, or? I mean, it doesn't go up at all based on...
It wouldn't. There are some different riders and things like that you can put in place to coincide with inflation and increase over time. But typically the general plans are going to give you about 60% of your income all the way to age 70. The other misconception that I see is if somebody's working for a large company that's nice enough to offer a disability plan, a group disability plan, what people don't realize is, let's use that $100,000 example again, and you work for Coca-Cola. If that individual goes down, they're going to pay 60%. But unfortunately, if it's coming from an institution that's providing it for you, it's going to be taxable. So somebody who's used to making $100,000 of income is now at like the $40,000 income after taxes. So what we do is we actually supplement. We use that strong base that Coca-Cola has provided them to give them that disability plan, and we'll supplement the difference and actually add some additional insurance from a disability perspective to get them closer to that $60,000 or even more in addition, to make sure that they can sustain their lifestyle and pay their bills.
Gotcha. See, I never knew. I knew about life insurance and disability, but I didn't know to that extent that you can. That's very, very interesting. Absolutely. So should I do that?
You should. You should. You're the biggest asset that you have, right?
It's funny because for 26 years, never had a single injury. Yeah. Well, actually 27 years, never had a single injury. The worst thing that I had was I used to get cramps, like in my legs playing sports. That was it. Yep. And then now that I'm 27, I don't know if that's the number that just starts happening to you. Yeah. But now that I'm 27, I've had crazy back problems. Yeah. And it's not something that's going to limit me from running businesses, but it's mentally very draining.
Absolutely.
And now I'm at the point where I'm just cutting weight. I actually fast every single day now to a certain time. And I try to drop weight, but the more I start thinking about it, I'm like, wait a second, should I get this disability insurance?
Always. The sooner you do it, the better off you'd be.
Yeah. I need to consider it, especially my brother.
Yeah, absolutely. But, tell Rob he needs to get his insurance in place.
Yeah. I guess, a lot of good information and knowledge there, and it was definitely very valuable for business owners and franchisees. Yeah. I guess, kind of wrapping up here, what we've noticed is so many people love to absorb content, knowledge, information, and then they don't do anything with it. Yeah. So if you had to recommend one single thing, someone that's listening to this today, they listen to all of it, absorb all the knowledge and information. If you had to choose one single thing that they would do as a business or franchisee, as a business owner or a franchisee, what would it be to get started?
Carve off a chunk of money that no ifs or buts, that you can afford to put away. And whether that's using any of these different type of vehicles, anything is getting, putting your foot or your feet in the right direction. Call an advisor like myself. Figure out and determine what that budget is with your advisor, going through a budget sheet, and put it away. And what happens is you notice, even $100 makes a huge impact in the future. We spend $100 every time we walk outside of the door. So to put it away for your future is not asking for that much, right?
Right.
So it puts us in a position where you can really diversify, and you'd be shocked. I don't care how old you are or how late you think it is to start,
Right.
what that can do for you in the future. And saving anything is better than nothing. And what happens is you get comfortable to that designated number. Let's say it's that $100 example.
Mm-hmm.
The following year, when you sit down to do a review with your advisor, maybe you can put away 150 or 200 or 300, right? And the goal is to get used to that or get comfortable with that number. Maybe sometimes you have to go backwards, but the goal and ideally is to always add a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more before you know it, you're putting a lot of money away.
Right.
And you're going to conquer all your goals and then some.
So take action today with something small.
Absolutely. Don't wait. Absolutely.
Got it.
You know, the thing in my business, and that's why I have a job, and that's why, you know, I don't necessarily love this idea, but that's the reason why I have a job, is nobody wakes up in the morning and says, hey, I'm going to start an IRA today. I'm going to buy life insurance. The only people that want to buy life insurance are people who are sick or dying. Right. So it's really good to be proactive, and, you know, calling an advisor would be the first step. And don't wait for us to call you. Come to us.
For sure. Last question for you before we wrap up. Is there anyone in your network that you know that has to be on this show? Either preferably a franchisee.
Franchisee. You know, I would say actually somebody that you definitely should invest your time in and to have on this show would be a really, really, really good accountant. And I actually do know somebody that
So Dustin.
Dustin.
Is that who you're going to say?
Yeah.
We've actually met with Dustin. He's been here the last 2 days.
Has he been on the podcast yet?
He's doing it. What are we doing next week? No. It's in January, I think.
Yeah, so Dustin is great. He's really, really smart. He can educate, and he can break it down in language that makes sense to people who don't understand taxes. The same way that I could maybe help an individual and break it down in the language that they understand from a financial planning standpoint.
For sure.
So I was super, super impressed with him, and I've actually brought him 2 clients to educate them.
Yeah. You know, we met him through you, right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
So that's the first person that I would tell you. Cool.
But sounds good. Appreciate your time.
Of course.
On
Thanks
the
for having me.
podcast.
Thanks for having me. I'm always down to do this. So it's fun.